When you learn what's called the mirror principle, energy, frequency, and vibration will pretty much be at your command, allowing you to shape your reality in the ways that you want. And so in this video, we're going to be going over why learning this powerful principle of the universe, in conjunction with a few others that I'm going to give you, will allow you to create as you wish and as you will. But we're also going to go over exactly how you can do that. So we're not just going to go over the philosophy behind it and the strategy behind it, but also the practical application that will allow for you to see results in your life, whether those results are more money coming in a way that you enjoy. So for example, not just doing anything, but doing things that actually light you up, things that you're passionate about, things that you enjoy doing to earn money, to maybe earn a living, to be financially abundant, whether that's to attract a specific kind of relationship, friendships, or something in that sector of your life, different health benefits, or whatever else it is. There's nothing really off limits when you learn about the mirror principle. And again, it's not just about learning it, but actually applying it. And I really encourage you to truly tune in and pay attention here, possibly even take notes, because it's not just enough to know about this information. You could know about it in the sense of you could bring it up in conversation, but it's really about the application. Remember, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. But if you actually do this, if you embody it, if you make it a part of your life, you really will have energy basically at your command. You really will be able to create the dream life that you wish to create for yourself. You'll know how to do it because these principles essentially allow for you to do it. And these principles are working in your life whether you know about them or not. They're either working unconsciously, which is for most people, or consciously, which it will hopefully be for you if you start applying it. And so the mirror principle, in a nutshell, basically tells us that the outer world, and you've heard it before if you've watched this channel, follows the inner world. So the outer world of your physical life follows the inner world of your mind, your mental side, and your spiritual side. Essentially, think of it like thoughts, emotions, and things of that nature. That inner essence of yourself, that inner world, that non-physical aspect of you is really what's running the show when it comes to what appears in your physical. And ultimately what's happening, if we want to look at it from the mirror principle, what you're doing inwardly is then reflected into your physical after enough time. So we can add something to represent time here. But after enough time, it is essentially reflected in your physical depending on what's happening in your inner world. Again, that non-physical part of yourself. And this is a true principle. Again, if you look at anyone and anyone's life, if you were to be able to go within them and see what their thoughts were, or how they were feeling, what they were activating from that inner world, and then you saw what was in their physical life and how their life was going, how they were feeling in general. Were they fulfilled? Were they not? Do they have even the material possessions that they actually want? It would always line up. You would always see that the people, and some may even surprise you, some people put on a very good appearance of looking like they're positive, but really deep down are very, very negative. Right? Because a lot of people go, well, why do good people I know, seem to struggle financially? Why do they struggle with health? Because you're not truly seeing what's going on in their inner world. A lot of people are very good at presenting one thing to the outside world, and a lot of things happening inwardly that are very, very different. This is a principle that basically works for every single person. And so if we were to look at someone who is incredibly negative inwardly, and again, in their inner world, we would notice that their outer world simply follows whatever they're cultivating inwardly. We would notice that what they're thinking about most of the time would be pretty negative, pretty pessimistic, pretty limited in their belief towards themselves, towards the world, and everything else. We would notice that their emotional state is in a place of what we could say is low consciousness, if you're aware of the Hawkins scale of consciousness. We could say it's below 200 most of the time. And then so it's not actually a surprise when that's reflected into their physical world, because you simply get the physical equivalent after enough time for it to come into time and space. And so the outer world follows the inner. This is what the mirror principle states in a nutshell, but we're going to take it even deeper. Because there's something else we can look at that is another way of saying the same thing, but we can dive into it a little bit more. And this is the principle or law of cause and effect. You see, when people think of cause and effect, they think this is a physical phenomena, right? We think of cause and effect in a Newtonian type of way, from a Newtonian paradigm. We think of, oh yeah, cause and effect, that's an outer world thing. You know, if you apply a certain force to something, you're gonna get an equal force back, right? If I punch the wall, depending on how hard I punch it, I'm gonna get that same force pretty much back against my fist, and it's gonna hurt, right? We understand cause and effect in the physical realm. But cause and effect does not stop there. In fact, cause and effect extends to each part of ourselves, which also includes the non-physical, meaning your thought realm also has cause and effect at play. Your feeling realm or spiritual realm has cause and effect at play. And it is in fact the causes inwardly that you are engaging in that activate or produce the effects you are experiencing physically. So essentially what you are doing inwardly, like we said, the outer follows the inner. What you are doing inwardly is the cause. The thoughts you are thinking, the feelings you are entertaining or producing is what ends up creating the effects you notice or start experiencing in your outer world. They start to line up again after enough time. In fact, we'll jump right down here. One way to think of the physical world, so that's what PW stands for here, the physical world is simply an energetic history. It is an inner world history. What you have been doing in the inner world, so just to make this a little more clear, this is the inner world. What you have been doing in that non-physical aspect of yourself, because you have that part of yourself, you think thoughts, right? You feel certain things, there's more to it as well. You have this non-physical inner part of yourself. You can't see it, you can't taste it, you can't touch it. That's a narrow bandwidth of frequency we call the physical. But it is certainly not the only frequency that's out there. It is simply the one that involves our five senses, and we're so immersed in a lot of the time that we believe that's all there is. But it's not even close to all that is. And when it comes to what actually influences your life, it is the inner world that influences it so much more. It's not even close to how much each influences the other. The inner world is what creates, in fact, your outer world. And so the physical world, your physical life, is simply an energetic history. So we'll write this down to make it easier here, rather than just trying to use symbols. Although that's what words are too. But we'll use some more familiar ones here, rather than my caveman, drawings here to give you that cue. So energetic history, that is what your physical world is. And what that means is what you have focused on inwardly long enough, after enough time, will start to be produced or show up as effects in your physical world. So I want you to keep that in mind. Your physical world is simply an energetic history. What you have been doing inwardly, again, those are the causes, will start to produce effects outwardly, and they will line up, right? So you will not have someone, for example, who inwardly thinks incredibly negatively, like all the time. It's pessimistic, catastrophizing, has the corresponding feelings. Because of that, they're probably not feeling so well. And then everything's going so smooth in their physical world. They have all the money they want. They have a job that they love. They have amazing relationships. No, that's the kind of person that typically their relationships are rocky at best. They're probably in a dead-end job they do not enjoy. They're not getting to do the things that they dream about, if they dream at all, right? They are not in the financial situation they want to be. They're not doing the things they want to. You will never see that happen in a different direction, because the outer world follows the inner. And we can switch that and go, you will not meet someone who genuinely has a well-cultivated inner world. They think positively and they align to that. They're genuinely doing it. They feel good most of the time. They're focused on their dreams. They believe in them. You will not find that person, usually, unless it's the beginning and they're creating a new energetic history, in these terrible situations typically, right? They might go through a momentary storm. That's also a natural part of the process. But if you were to look at their life, you would see that they are fulfilled. They are well taken care of. They believe the universe has their back, and it demonstrates that to them, right? And so you will not find that that's happening opposite, where it's like just random and, the negative person's getting the positive physical and the positive inner world person's getting the negative physical. You're not going to see that happen, because by law, it cannot happen, right? The physical world is an energetic history. Even Max Planck, who is considered one of the founders of quantum mechanics, he's kind of one of the main guys, brilliant physicist, who basically, so much of his work went towards understanding the quantum. Even a lot of our understanding today is from people like Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, Niels Bohr, Schrödinger, and many more. But Max Planck was one of the big, the giants of that era in helping us discover these things. And there's a quote I love from him that kind of explains this. And he basically says, I consider consciousness to be primary. And I'll put the exact quote up, I'm going to butcher it, but just to give you the idea. And consciousness, you can think of the inner world stuff, right? This is energy, this is frequency, this is vibration. Like Nikola Tesla said, if you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in energy, frequency, and vibration. So Max Planck said, I consider consciousness primary, essentially, and matter as derivative of consciousness, as in it derives from, it comes from, it is birthed from consciousness. That is energy, or the inner world stuff, giving birth to physicality, or outer following inner, right? This is not something I've just pulled out of nothing, right? This is coming from some of the most brilliant minds. That the energetic, the consciousness, the spirit, the inner world, that is primary. And the physical world comes from that. Again, just another way of saying that the outer follows the inner. And be aware that this is not a new idea. Even when Max Planck, Werner Heisenberg, all of them were doing their research, even when the double slit experiment was first being conducted and the observer effect and all these other things were being discovered, there have been bodies of work that have understood this for thousands of years. We can trace it back to things like ancient Egypt, to where they understood these principles, and they may have not explained it in the data-driven way a lot of us seem to need to require these days, but they understood it, and a lot of what they understood is being confirmed now through the data, through a lot of these things. For example, cause and effect, this idea I'm giving you here is coming from what's called Hermetic wisdom, or the Hermetic principles, the 7 or 8, if you want to throw in the 8, the principle of care. But ultimately, the Hermetic principles is mainly 7, talk about cause and effect, and how cause and effect operates at all planes of existence. It's not just a physical thing, and that cause and effect ultimately is the inner world. The causes you activate and dwell upon inwardly, meaning the thoughts that you entertain and produce, the emotions you decide to entertain or produce, everything you're essentially focused on in that inner world place creates effects in your life. Now, it also creates effects inwardly, right? If you think certain thoughts, you attract first more thoughts of a similar or like kind. This is why, if you notice, if you've ever spiraled, which all of us have done this usually at some point, most of us, if you ever spiraled into negative thoughts, did you notice that more and more negative thoughts started popping up? Yes, because you were thinking or entertaining these negative thoughts, and the effect of that was more negative thoughts. But it works the other way as well, right? So it starts at that level, and if you stay focused, it starts to build and build and build and build an energy until the point where it becomes in the physical world, or draws into the physical the equivalent of what you've been doing in the inner world. So this is not coming just from science in the modern day. It's been known about for a very, very long time, and it probably predates Hermetic wisdom, depending on how we look at history, right? If you look at it, for example, Atlantean times, right? Some people believe in it, some people don't. I personally do believe in it. They were aware of this as well. In fact, they were aware of a lot more than just this. They were reality creation masters. They had mastered the game, and they understood a lot of these principles. Now, another thing I'm going to give you is this is also the principle of karma, or the law of karma. Cause and effect is ultimately karma. There's a great book called Karmic Management that explains this really well, and I think they describe, I might have to put this up, but basically that karma is a thought. That's it. That's what karma is. And every thought you send out plants a seed that will germinate and grow. And the more thoughts that you put in a certain direction, right? So the more thoughts, again, that are positive, it will grow and produce in that direction versus if you do it the other way, right? That karma is cause and effect, and it starts at thought. That's the underlying cause of everything is karma, right? And so karma is also cause and effect. And you can see some of these themes coming from different bodies of work kind of coming together here. But cause and effect, outer follows inner, mirror principle is something that we work with there as well. And again, this is not coming just from esotericism. This is coming from science as well. Some of the most brilliant minds to ever science, I was going to say, to ever science, the greatest scientists to ever science have said these things. Again, we didn't even throw in, I mentioned Nikola Tesla, another one that we could put in there. So I want to keep it fairly simple when it comes to practically using this. I don't want to overload you and just give you some things you can keep doing if you've already been doing it, but also to start if you have not, right? It's important that we start where we're at with this. You know, you might see even some other things I do and go, oh crap, I need to do all of this, but you're just going to get overwhelmed and kind of back to where you need to be. And what this means is if you're in first grade with this, focus on graduating first grade before going to second, third, and fourth. Don't try and jump to fifth, sixth, and seventh before you've done that, right? One foot in front of the other. So how do we start using the mirror principle? Well, the first thing is to take what I said in the last section and understand you need to focus more on the inner than the outer. Now, again, the outer is important, and we'll get to essentially how that works a little bit as well, but most people are way too hyper-fixated on their outer world. And remember, your outer world is an energetic history. And so you're essentially hyper-fixated on a history. It's something that's already occurred. I know it's in your physical life now, but what's produced that has already happened. And so if you're focusing or lamenting that or complaining about that, you're focusing on something that's already occurred, and now you're recreating more of it because you're complaining about it. And so we want to focus more on the inner than the outer. Again, this doesn't mean you're going to be on the couch meditating always. It just means you're going to be more aware of your inner state, more aware of your thinking, more aware of your feeling, more aware of your focus and concentration, which is huge. Your focus is a superpower because what you focus on is what you start bringing about, right? Where focus goes, energy flows. And like I mentioned, again, consciousness, energy, spirit, all talking about the same thing here. Consciousness, energy, spirit is fundamental. Matter is derivative or derives from these things. It is created by energy, spirit, consciousness, right? So we want to focus on consciousness is another word we could use. One great way to do that, and one thing I do with clients all the time, is we focus on just raising their consciousness, or we could say raising their frequency, raising their energy, not physical energy, although that will happen as well when you do this, but just their frequency, vibration, and energy again from that inner world place. And when we focus on this, and I work with people with this, you can see the results change very quickly because when they raise their consciousness, their frequency, and energy, all of this physical stuff has to change because they are now, again, creating this new energetic history. New things are now created from this new level of energy, right? So that's what you're ultimately going for here. Now, I've had a mentor say basically that you want about 90 to 99% of what you focus on to be the inner world. Essentially, the thinking, the feeling, your attitude, your mindset, these inner world things are so much of the game. And that remaining 10% to even 1% or less is the physical strategy, tactics, actions, and that kind of thing. Now, again, I don't want you to make this out to be, I'm saying don't take any physical action. It's not true. But physical action for physical action's sake is not going to get you very far. Or if you do break through some brick walls, it's always going to come with consequences you're probably not going to want. Burnout, health issues, relationship breakdown, whatever else. We call this by me, where you're essentially fighting life. When we do it in this way, we're working with life, which means we have that power at our back, right? So we want to be doing a lot more inner stuff. Now, what's this look like? Again, a lot of it is going to come down to your thinking. Again, you get what you think about most of the time. You get what you feel about most of the time too, but one of the reasons I believe thinking is so highlighted, and I do the same thing, I highlight this, is because of something known as the principle of correspondence. When you think a certain way, it causes you to feel a corresponding way. Meaning if you start thinking better thoughts, you will start feeling better as a result. Now the opposite is true as well. If you start feeling better, you will also notice you probably have access to better thoughts. Ultimately though, we're very thinking creatures. Most of us grew up very analytical and cerebral. There might be some tribes or some people who grew up way more emotionally attuned, where it'd be better for them to focus on the emotion because that's kind of what they're used to or used to operating from. But for most of you watching this video, seeking out information of this kind, most likely the thinking part is going to be the best place for you to start. As you start thinking better, as you start monitoring your thoughts and just rejecting the ones you don't want to create in your life, just look at every thought that comes in as best you can. Some will slip by when you're in the beginning of this. Don't worry about it. You'll get better. It's like a muscle. Again, if you get to 51% of your thinking is monitored and selected, you're going to be off to the races. You've hit that tipping point and things are going to get a lot easier. And if you're not quite there yet, just understand you're building the muscles and this is going to do so much for you moving forward, right? So you want to monitor those thoughts and then basically ask yourself, do I want this thought and what it implies and what it activates inwardly as a part of my energetic history? You can just ask yourself that question. Do I want this thought to essentially be like a seed in the ground that's going to grow in my life in one way or another? And when you ask this question, you start becoming a lot more aware of what you're thinking about, of what you're feeling about. And so we want to be more aware as we're going throughout the day. Now, this includes doing things like meditation, visualization, reading good material, watching good videos like this, that help you feel better, hopefully, right? And doing things of that nature, because what that's doing is it's training your thinking as well. Right? When you're meditating, even if you're meditating in the sense of clearing your mind, a lot of meditating can also be monitoring thoughts. It depends on what you're going for. That helps as well. But we also want to just be doing it throughout the day. If you meditate for 20 minutes, and let's say you do it really like the best meditation ever, but then for the rest of your day, you're just letting your mind run wild, that's not going to be an effective strategy. So still do the actual sit-down inner work practices. Those are amazing, and I highly recommend them. But also in your moment to moment. You are in infinite action. You are always sending out a signal. You are always planting those inner seeds that will be produced in your life every moment of every day, 24/7, always. And so it's not just about while you're doing a little thing doing that. It's also learning how to monitor these throughout the day to the point where it's automatic, where you're only choosing, for the most part, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't get hung up on that. But for the most part, getting to the point where you are choosing the better thoughts. That's going in, again, from the inner world and being reflected in the outer over time. Remember, we want to be at cause in our life. You are a creator. You are not a victim, no matter how many corporations and government people and whoever else try to convince you that you are. They want you disempowered because then you'll look for some, big daddy, government or whatever outside of you for protection or for resources or whatever else. You don't need it. You are deep down at your core a creator, an incredibly powerful creator. Disempowering you is essentially taking your own power and using it against yourself. Right? It's still being used, it's just being directed in a way that doesn't serve you. And so learn how to do this and you suddenly become incredibly empowered, right? Which is what a lot of those people do not want. But to do this, we have to be at cause at our lives, not at effect. Now, what effect means is you just take responsibility and throw it to everything outside of yourself. Oh, the government's doing this. Oh, this other person's doing this. Oh, I can't because of this, right? That is a disempowering stance, and none of this will work if you come from that stance. Right? It just won't work. There's no way to be a victim or play the victim and be at effect and to create the life you want for yourself. And so you have to make the choice. It's not that one choice is better than the other. From my stance, I believe one is. But it's not that you're a better or worse person depending on which one you pick. But understand you can't have both. You can either step into being the powerful creator and create your reality in the ways you want, or you can have the victim story, or you can be at effect to everything that happens in your life. And you're like a little paper boat, as reality transurfing would say, just being pulled around and swished around, just waiting for the waves to come and do whatever they're going to do to you, right? You can be at cause, however, get a captain and crew on a ship and steadily head in the direction you want to go in. So 99% inner, making sure you're doing that monitoring stuff. Now, what about action? Surely we're not going to sit down on the couch and do nothing. Surely we're not just going to meditate our way to success. Again, a lot more of it is inner world than you think. However, the inner and outer are connected. They're not rivals. They're not in competition. They're not one's better than the other. They are both beautiful parts of a natural process that's unfolding for you. Your physical component to you is no less or more valuable than the inner world. We're just going over a hierarchy of how all of this is birthed into your life, right? Doesn't mean one's better than the other. They both require each other. Without the outer, there's no inner. There's no contrast to even know that there is an inner or an outer without the other. And so ultimately understand you will still be doing outer world things. The difference is you will be doing aligned, inspired actions. And in fact, you may be doing quite a lot of them. Understand when we say 90 to 90%, 99% of inner things that you're going to be doing, you could still be taking action while maintaining that higher level of inner state. A lot of people are used to taking actions that they don't enjoy taking, that they kind of associate taking action with doing things they don't want to do. But there is absolutely a version of you, a reality of you, where almost every action you take, even when you're taking a lot, line up, are inspired, and feel amazing. There is this crazy idea that if you're more spiritually aware, or you're more aligned, you're going to take less action, meditate on a mountaintop or not do anything, just be sitting on your couch. It's just not true. Because think of the idea of being lined up. Like you're in the sweet spot, like everything's like churning and moving nicely and fluidly and in flow. Does that sound like a state where you want to stay still and do nothing? And not in the sense of like you'll meditate every now and then, you probably will. Or does that sound like a state where you have a lot of energy and you want to express that energy and you want to do things because you're excited to do things? Well, that's absolutely how it is. That's how I get with these videos for the most part, right? Don't think for a second that I don't like doing this. This is a joy for me to be able to do, right? I don't know how long we've been doing this. I can take a look. I think for 25, 30 minutes. It feels like a blink of an eye and also like an eternity at the same time in a strange way, right? There's this time dilation that occurs when you do it too, when you're in this flow. And so understand, when your inner's aligned, your outer's going to follow. You will want to take action. The difference is, well, there's actually a couple of differences. You will enjoy the action because it's aligned and inspired, and it will move the needle forward faster than any forced action you have been trying. And the reason for that is because inspired action, you could think of it like the divine moving through you. In fact, again, I've mentioned this on another video. The old definition of inspired is like the breath of the divine coming through you, or the breath of God coming through you, right? So it's like actually that divine part of yourself that you're almost like operating like a channel, and this action and these ideas are coming through that you then are expressing physically through your actual movements. Right? Now imagine doing that over and over again versus forced work that you don't enjoy. And the reason you don't enjoy it, because it's not inspired. It's not source, God, that deeper part of you working through you. It's some egoic thing or something someone told you to do. So you're doing it because someone told you and, who probably doesn't know your best path forward, right? This is what begins to happen when you do everything that we're going over here and you also understand this stuff that we went over before, right? So when you're doing this, you're doing the inner work, you're monitoring your thoughts, be aware of when the inspired actions come up. Be aware when like something just incredibly obvious shows up and it feels good. It's like, yeah, that makes so much sense. Go do it. So again, you can't just do this thing where you're just doing inner world stuff and not taking the action. But the thing is, you will be so compelled, so thrilled, so excited to take the action when you're properly lined up. If you have blocks, you might need to get those out of there if it's preventing you from doing that. But again, that's something you can do. And then the action is going to feel great. You almost won't be able to help but take the action, if that makes sense, right? So this is the mirror principle in a nutshell. What I would have you do now is actually go watch this video next, where I give you a complete system if you want to start making a lot of money from your passion, doing work that you love, feeling good and everything else. It's basically the exact system for manifestation. It's a part of what we actually give clients. There's so much more that's going to tie into what you've learned here. And so if you're looking to do that in this new year, I highly recommend that you take a look.